is 1 o'clock, and we want to welcome everyone to the budget workshop for the Blueprint IA board. And I think that we seem to have a quorum. Okay, we do. We do have Commissioner Porter, who is asked to participate telephonically. Is she online? Yes. Okay, so we will entertain a motion to allow her. Okay. Okay, it's been properly moved in second. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Any opposed? Thank you. Welcome on board, Commissioner Porter. Can you hear us?
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair.
Very good. So today is May 8th, 2025, and we are here today for the Blueprint Intergovernmental Agency Budget Workshop. And we're going to go ahead and get started. As a housekeeping matter, I want to remind our directors that the public, and staff that my duty as chair includes adhering to and enforcing the rules regarding debate and decorum during this meeting, consistent with the requirements of Robert's Rules of Order. I will ask you all to address your remarks through the chair. So, on our agenda for this budget workshop is our agency's fiscal year 2026 proposed operating budget and the 5-year capital improvement program, along with recommendations for our consideration. Mr. White, do you have a presentation?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. Should have a presentation. As you mentioned, Madam Chair, this is your workshop item, and it's the workshop on the proposed fiscal year 2026 operating budget and the 5-year capital improvements plan for the Blueprint or Intergovernmental Agency. Madam Chair, Directors, we're pleased to bring you a balanced budget that maintains the momentum on the projects that we have going on with the Blueprint Intergovernmental Agency. This is both the infrastructure projects. We had a wonderful groundbreaking earlier today on the Orange Meridian Park. And as you can see from the images, the Market District Park is under construction. The Northeast Park is also under construction. But this is also a budget that maintains the momentum in terms of economic development. We recently hosted the Motor Drive Systems and Magnetics Conference, bringing some of the most brilliant minds across the country, across the nation, across the globe, actually, right here to Tallahassee. It also invests in local industries that create jobs. The budget process includes collaboration with both the city and county budgeting staff to ensure that we're consistent with our formatting. Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. The processes that we use and our revenue estimates. So we make sure we're in lockstep with both the city and county in terms of those estimates that we use. It incorporates a decade of IA board direction. That includes project prioritization, the scope of the projects, the implementation plan, as well as the OEV strategic plan. The next steps after the workshop, the adoption of the budget requires 2 public hearings. The first one is with the Citizens Advisory Committee on August 28th, and then the second and final public hearing would be at your September 18th IA board. I'll turn it over to Autumn to provide some information on the infrastructure side of things, and then Keith will go into the economic development side of things as well.
Thank you, Artie. Well, I just want to get started kind of reminding everybody of the quality projects that you guys have set us out to build, the innovative techniques and strategies, the best practices that we incorporate into the projects that are based on your vision for how we implement this program are award-winning. And this year, we have already received 4 awards for the Blueprint projects. We got the History and Culture Trail along Capitol Cascades Trail Segment 3 was recognized this year. The Northeast Gateway was recognized this year. And at the state level, the Lake Jackson Greenway as Project of the Year for the Florida chapter of the American Public Works Association. And then your staff member at Blueprint, Martha Hodgson, was recognized this year as the Public Sector Engineer of the Year. And she may not have known that was in our presentation, but we sure are glad you're a part of our team. So awards are great, but show me the money. We recently got a grant from the Department of Environmental Protection for innovations in stormwater treatment for the Capital Cascades Trail Segment 4 project, which will go into construction later this year. Okay, let's talk about our fiscal year 26 budget. Well, the bottom line for this budget is keeping the construction and keeping the projects moving forward. As of 2025, 25 of the 27 Blueprint 2020 projects are in progress. And in 2026, we anticipate 12 of those projects being in construction. And that's on the heels of 14 projects being in construction this year. So it's all about construction. It's all about progress. As already mentioned, we have parks that are already in construction. Today, we celebrated the groundbreaking for the Orange Meridian Park, which was a lot of fun, a great way to start the day. But we also have the Market District and the Northeast Park under construction. The IA board has done an amazing job of over a decade's worth of direction to tell us what to build and when to build it. A couple of key ones I want to point out here. In 2018, knowing that large infrastructure projects can take many years to complete, the IA board approved advance funding these projects so that when we actually started receiving the sales tax funds in 2020, we could hit the ground running. And you're seeing that construction activity happening now as a result of that decision. In 2022, the IA board started to approve financing plans to pay for these projects so that we could bring the benefits to the community more quickly. And today's budget for fiscal year 26 reflects another bond issuance in 2026. And then lastly, in 2024, the IA board approved the budget master project format. And we have already been able to benefit from this. By not publishing our cost estimates for our projects, we've been able to see construction bids that are coming in lower than our cost estimates just over this last year. I also want to recognize that due to your strong financial management at Blueprint, we continue to receive the highest ratings available from the bonding agencies. And this is going to be something that will help us to get lower interest rates as we do the Series 2026 bond issuance, if approved by this IA board. So looking just at 2026, the allocations total almost $98 million going to the infrastructure program. Of course, as committed over 5 years ago, we have our annual allocations that get distributed to Blueprint for greenways and bike routes, but also to the city and the county for sidewalk projects, for water quality improvements, for operating costs for parks that have been built with Blueprint funds, and transit. The $87 million will go towards our regional mobility and gateway projects. And as you can see, the majority of those funds would come from that bond issuance, and that would keep the construction moving forward on projects like Airport Gateway, Northeast Connector Corridor, the Bannerman Road project, Northeast Gateway, the design and construction for sidewalks on Tharp Street, and the North Monroe Gateway project. This slide just illustrates the geographic diversity of where the Blueprint projects that are in construction are happening throughout the county. As I mentioned, 14 projects in construction this year and 12 projects next year. And what's the difference between those two numbers? Well, quite frankly, we're wrapping some projects up this year. The Animal Service Center will wrap up, for example, and then next year we'll start to initiate some new ones as well. So looking at just over the 5-year period, almost $150 million to support our local economy through direct expenditures through fiscal year 2030. So that means using local contractors, using local minority and women-owned certified firms, and bringing that investment that we make in ourselves back into our community. And that includes projects that are key Southside projects, Airport Gateway, and beautification and improvements to the fairgrounds, just to name a couple. Lastly, before I turn it over to my partner to my left, I just want to recognize the vision of the IA board to create an agency that pairs infrastructure and economic development. Through the Blueprint program, we have tried, tested, and confirmed that strategic investments in infrastructure yield economic return for the City of Tallahassee and for Leon County. I mentioned already the use of local contractors, but you also see it happening on the private side. Great examples of that include the investments that have been made in the Cascades Trail and how we're seeing that private sector investment along Franklin Boulevard. And of course, the big project, the AC Marriott, and other projects like the Edison that are right in Cascades Park. Those projects certainly would not have occurred had this IA board not had the vision to be able to make these strategic investments in infrastructure. So anyhow, that's our budget for this year. It's all about construction. It's all about progress, and just keep us moving forward. Thank you for your time, and I'll turn it over to Keith Bowers, Director for the Office of Economic Vitality.
Thank you, Autumn.
Good afternoon, directors. I'm happy to provide an overview of the proposed fiscal year 2026 budget and the proposed fiscal year 2026 through fiscal year 2030 capital improvement allocation for the Office of Economic Vitality. The proposed $3.94 million for the budget for the FY 2026 budget allocates funding to cover existing economic development projects. It allocates funding for the Future Opportunity Leveraging Fund and the Competitive Projects Fund, and includes operating costs for debt service expenses. Approximately $1.2 million is allocated to the MWSBE division of OEV to implement the city, county, and blueprint supplier diversity initiatives. And an additional allocation of $200,000 is programmed to update the supplier diversity study for fiscal year 2026. Now, shifting to the capital improvement program. The proposed capital improvement program allocates funding to the initiatives, grants, and programs master project and to sub-projects such as the Future Opportunity Leveraging Fund, the Competitive Project Fund, as well as business-to-business engagement actions and economic vitality studies. The projected allocation to the FOLF over the next 5 years is approximately $4 million. Now, as outlined in Budget Recommendation C, OEV is seeking the authorization to establish air service incentive capacity improvements sub-project to catalyze economic opportunities at Tallahassee International Airport, or TLH. This initiative is a tactic prescribed in OEV's strategic plan and directly impacts one of OEV's target industries, the manufacturing, transportation, and logistics industry. Furthermore, this initiative builds on this existing synergy between TLH and OEV, such as developing the foreign trade zone, promoting the activation of airport properties for commercial use, and the utilization of DBEs and MWBEs for airport procurement opportunities. One of the specific initiatives this program would leverage is known as the Minimum Revenue Guarantee, or MRG. MRGs guarantee an airline a minimum revenue amounts for each new route over a defined term, typically not exceeding 24 months. The Federal Aviation Administration regulations allow community-sponsored financial support to fund minimum revenue guarantees when recruiting new air service. The proposed funding qualifies as a community-sponsored financial support. FAA prohibits the use of airport revenues for funding MRGs. So the minimum revenue guarantees can be used to incentivize airlines to launch new routes to key destinations, hubs, and international markets. Once the routes are established, MRG funds could also support associated startup costs such as gate modifications, security screening, baggage handling, and signage installation. The goal is to support economic development within the community by launching new routes, reducing passenger leakage to other airports like Jacksonville, Panama City, or Orlando, lowering airfares through increased competition, attraction of inbound visitors and business travelers, and to stimulate the local job creation and spending. MRGs are used in communities like Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, Panama City, Augusta, Georgia, and New Orleans, to name a few. FAA prohibits the commingling of airport funds with funds used for MRGs. Therefore, the City of Tallahassee will be required to administer the contracts for each MRG. TLH commissioned a study to analyze and quantify the economic impact of developing MRGs through a consultant, ASM Route Development Consultant, which is included as attachment 3 in your agenda package. According to ASM Route Development Consultants, each additional 1,000 employment results in almost 6 jobs and $678,000 in economic output. The projected economic output over the next 15 years is $1.1 billion and the creation of more than 11,000 jobs. And with that, I'll turn it over to Artie. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. All right. Oh, the financial impact, yes. The financial impact. OEV is requesting a budget amendment to the fiscal year 25 budget for an allocation of $670,000, and then moving forward, a $670,000 annual on an annual basis for the remaining 15 years of the life of the Blueprint program, totaling $10 million. If approved, an estimated $4.1 million will still remain available in the FOLF over the next 5 years planning period for other economic development projects. And now I will turn it over to Artie.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Autumn, Madam Chair, directors. Again, just in summary, we have a proposed budget, proposed balanced budget that maintains the momentum of the projects that we have underway, both infrastructure and economic development. It was developed in collaboration with both the city and county budget offices. It incorporates a decade of direction we've received from the IA board. The adoption of it includes 2 public hearings, the first one on August 28th with the Citizens Advisory Committee, and then the final public hearing would be with this board on September 18th. The recommended option today for this workshop is option number 1, and there's 3 parts to that. The first part is to approve the proposed operating budgets and the capital improvement programs into the final FY 2026 budget. That would go to those public hearings. Budget recommendation B is to authorize Blueprint Infrastructure to advertise and award, pursuant to our procurement policy, contracts for the construction of Northeast Gateway, Wilani Boulevard Phase 2, as well as contracts for the design of Airport Gateway Phase 2. And then finally, budget recommendation C is what Keith was describing. It would be the budget amendment for this year in the amount of $670,000 for the Air Service Incentive and Capacity Program, as well as the annual allocation to that fund for the remainder of the Blueprint program. With that, we're happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Artie and Autumn and Keith for your presentations. At this time, we will take up any board discussion regarding the recommendation.
I'm going to end this with a motion, if you don't mind, Madam Chair.
Sure.
But I do have some comments. First of all, the budget looks good. After reviewing the airport service incentive capacity improvement program, I was pretty excited about that. I do think it's important that when we have opportunities to subsidize big business and it creates a economic incentive or return, we should consider those things. But I also believe that the best example of gap funding we've seen thus far for the city-county coming together has been what we've done on affordable housing. For example, Columbia Gardens, 400 new affordable housing units, $100 million or over $100 million of private investment into our community. I can't think of a single thing in my tenure as a commissioner that has done more, has brought back more, had more of an effect on our community than Columbia Gardens has had on our community. As we know, that was with one-time funding that we received from the federal government. 1,100 jobs the airport incentive program will create, and that's nothing to thumb our nose at. That's pretty significant. I'm excited about that as well. But we think about who those jobs are going to go to. They're going to go to airport staff, baggage handlers, hospitality workers, people who will barely make a living wage. And considering that, I think it pairs well with this proposal I'm about to present to the whole board. How many blue-collar workers in our community are supporting the efforts of every business traveler that we have come to our community, and that we're going to expand our airport services with this airport service incentive program for. And we have an opportunity to create affordable housing here for them to subsidize affordable housing developers exactly like we did in those proposals, in this proposal that we're doing. for our airlines. And I mentioned that in the case of affordable housing, it does work for us, and I think we all should consider it. As you all know, CAJM has come to the IA before. They come to the city, they come to the county. They're urging us to identify different funding sources to augment our existing efforts on affordable housing. I'm asking that in addition to the airport proposal, that we create a similar program to address our dire need in affordable housing and has guaranteed results. We've seen those results time and time again. At a fraction of the amount amount the airport proposal is coming in at 700 or 650,000, I believe it is, 670, in a new affordable housing gap finance incentive program. And we can have staff work with our respective housing staffs to bring us back up the parameters around the program. As I understand that this will have to come back as an agenda item. Therefore, at this point, I would like to make the motion that we accept staff recommendations, items, option number 1, A through C, with the recommendation authorizing OAV to also establish a program titled Affordable Housing Gap Finance Incentive Program under its incentive grants and programs, and fund the program with an annual allocation of $250,000, including a budget amendment for the current fiscal year 2025. That's my motion I'm making, Madam Chair.
Before I entertain a second, and I appreciate the spirit that you're doing this in, but I think that for the public and for us, I would rather do a separate motion regarding the affordable housing piece, as opposed to appending it to this. We came today prepared to look at this. We didn't come prepared to add anything to this. And I think that, I'm not saying that it can't happen. I'm just asking if we would just deal with this recommendation that is before us without adding to it.
Point of parliamentary inquiry.
Just a moment, I'm trying to get agreement from the maker of the motion.
Madam Chair, if I could, I would like to have it together, but if I could get a second, I'd like to have it together.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved in second. You had go ahead and state your issue, parliamentary issue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Don't we have to allow there to be an entertainment of a second when a motion is made without discussion ahead of it?
As chair, I took that point of privilege to try to clear the air before we got the second. But we can now clear the air now that we have a second, if people can vote how they choose to vote. Because what I was trying to do was make this easy. But we want to do it differently, we can do it differently. We have a second. Are there any? Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just pop in on that. I would have tended to agree with the chair, Commissioner Maddox, on separating those just to keep it tidy. So I'm going to talk about the airport part and the budget part first, and then I'll just make a few comments on that affordable housing piece. I'm going to support, I'll support A, B, and C, and then I'll listen to the discussion on Commissioner Maddox's additional idea, and I'm willing to entertain that, Commissioner Maddox, if it comes back. Not making any commitments to support that until I see the details on it. But in terms of the budget, I want to say thank you guys for presenting a balanced budget. I know that Commissioner O'Keefe has expressed concerns, and I think they're valid concerns over some of these project costs. But I do think it's important to emphasize that we have a balanced budget, right? These are revenue neutral estimates, essentially, that we think we can pay for. Is that correct? And is that a correct statement?
Correct, we are presenting a balanced budget.
Right. And I think Commissioner O'Keefe, you sort of highlight very well the nature of these increases, which are pretty extensive, but I think that you have to put them in the context also of understanding that this is a long-term program. You can't really pivot at this point. You've kind of jumped the shark in terms of committing to these major, especially the big gateway projects. And so I just want to add that little bit of context that, these are 10, 15, 20-year programs, and we have seen enormous cost increases across the board for this type of construction work, and I just want, before we start hammering staff about these projected estimates, I think that's important. And so, you know, my concern is going to be that in 10 years, the revenues may not meet up, but these are 5-year windows we're looking at. Am I correct? Okay, so I think that all things considered, when you're doing big projects like this, you're going to see big numbers, and I think in the world we live in today, these things don't happen in a vacuum. Construction costs are what they are, and there's just not a whole lot we can do to control that until we get to a point where we want to nitpick these things to death to the point that they don't go forward. I've got some questions. I see the airport director's here. Madam Chair, is it okay if I ask some questions of the airport director in regards to recommendation C in the incentive program?
Sure.
Mr. Airport Director, first and foremost, I want to say I have a lot of respect for you and what you do and your efforts at the airport, as well as the city, my city colleagues. I know that that's a difficult cost center, if you will, for the city to try and operate. I don't disagree with the idea of incentivizing. Clearly, we need to incentivize carriers to get traffic to our airport. And this is probably the right pool of money for it to come from. I understand the sort of limitations that you have in terms of needing from the FAA and things like that. My questions are, what happens if at the end of a fiscal year, the money's not actuated, it's not programmed, the carriers don't need it? Does it just go back into the fund?
Thank you, Commissioner, for the question, and thank you to each of you members and directors of the board here. Thank you for the opportunity. Yes, so the dollars would roll over. So what we're looking to do is better position our airport, our community, our region for the opportunities that will come to us with respect to air service development that will result in more destinations, more frequency, more competition, the things that we've all heard here in our community and that the public desires. So, you know, I like to let the public know that we are listening. We're out here, we hear the complaints, we're scrubbing social media, we see it. And so from that standpoint, we're looking to do something different. On December 7th of 2023, the FAA released some new policy guidance. And so that's what we're working from. That's the foundation of all of this and with this request. But the direct answer to your question, Commissioner, is that it would roll over. And that's the capacity, because we're going to, oftentimes I'm talking to our city commission about safety, security, capacity. And so in this term, we're always keeping our eye on the ball with respect to safety and security. But let's not let capacity issues creep up on us. We've heard about the recent issues at the security checkpoint with TSA. That was a TSA issue, but if I can make a difference and expand that TSA and start talking about a third lane at the checkpoint, the gate areas are going to get more congested as our numbers are reaching all-time record highs. So right now, where we sit today, we're at the highest passenger traffic activity level since 2007, okay? And so what I'm looking for is, as we break the all-time record high that this airport has ever seen, I'm suggesting that we are going to be bringing in more carriers. We need to focus on low-cost and ultra-low-cost carriers and move the needle with respect to capacity.
So, Madam Chair, if I may, Mr. Director, this money would not be used for any capacity expansions, though, right? These are simply subsidies, if you will, for carriers to make them whole for filling seats, right?
Yeah. So the dollars would be in a negotiated agreement with specific carriers, okay? And then through those negotiations, so the city would need to administer the funds. The airport would serve as a technical resource to the city. And so from that standpoint, once we negotiate an agreement with a particular carrier or two or more, it just depends on how far we can stretch those dollars, because we're always trying to leverage the local dollar to take us as far as we can. But in terms of the question, if not used, because that's our desire, that they could be used for some of those capacity related, but that would be a last resort.
So let's say hypothetically, you get a couple more carriers, you increase capacity beyond your current levels, and you need to expand capacity. Is that a funding, is that going to have to come from the city's funding to, like, if you need to expand to an extra TSA lane or widen the main corridor.
Yeah.
In other words, just want to just understand exactly where the 670,000 would be going on a year-to-year basis, assuming it doesn't go. I mean, I don't really care if it goes to capacity improvements as well. I think it's just a clarifying question for all of us.
Yeah. So again, it's going to go into the fund to establish the minimum revenue guarantee.
Right.
And that's the highest and best use, if I say it that way. That's the highest and best use for the dollars, while we can concurrently take that conversation, add that tool to our toolbox in terms of the incentives that I'm currently offering. But other airports, other communities are doing this frequently now. It puts us at a competitive disadvantage to not have this in our toolbox as we're talking to these carriers.
Madam Chair, if I may. And then we've seen some ideas floated in the community that frankly I think are pretty good ideas, things like free parking or creating, free coffee, free shoe shine and foot massages, I don't know, whatever. One of those ideas that I saw from a local businessman talked about creating like a incubator at the airport for airlines who want to experiment with technologies or beta test ideas for baggage handling or customer processing or anything like that. I think those are good ideas that we should entertain. I think any little thing that we can do at the Tallahassee Airport to make that customer experience better and less expensive. Every time I go to the airport, the parking lot's full, which is to your credit. But I think a lot of those long-term parking situations, that's an easy thing that I think we could do that does seem to make sense to me. So I just want to throw that out there. And then secondarily, can you give us all just a real quick status update on the International Processing Facility and the Foreign Trade Zone designation? Because I think those lend themselves to this conversation about incentivizing carriers.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. And many of you may know that's my passion with respect to the international facility, the ongoing development of that facility, the conversations we're having within the community and outside the community with respect to what that facility will do for us. Tomorrow I'm meeting with U.S. Customs and Border Protection, taking some next steps with the operational aspect of that facility. The future foreign trade zone currently designed as we take that forward once we complete the facility, make formal application to the U.S. Foreign Trade Zones Board. They will be the approving authority for the foreign trade zone, but we've already gone out to those envisioned 11 counties surrounding us. Keith's presentation had a little map there of those 11 counties that basically extend from Taylor County to our east over to Gulf County to our west. So we envision that. It meets the parameters of the U.S. Foreign Trade Zones Board. It's coordinated. We've got a great consultant on board that's helping us navigate through that then activates the airport to an even greater degree and all. But to your previous statement, we also are open to research and development, emerging technologies, things of that nature. I've talked to our city commission briefly, I believe, about advanced air mobility as an example. The future of aviation and those smaller aircraft that will be buzzing around the state and all is the future of where things are going to go. Our Secretary of Transportation at Florida Department of Transportation is very excited about that program. I sit on the state's advanced mobility advisory committee there. Yes, but either way, looking towards the future, we're always open to those possibilities.
Thank you. And in closing, Madam Chair, and thank you, Director Pollard. Again, I think you're doing a great job at the airport, and I think we're all on the same airplane here. We want the airport to be a massive success, and I think it's responsible for us to do everything that we can in our power to ensure that you have the tools you need in the toolbox. So thank you for that. I assume there will be more questions for you. And then just in closing, and I will, Commissioner Maddox, I'll support the motion as it sits on the floor and seconded. I would have preferred if we could have separated that $250,000 piece just to have a little more robust discussion on it. I feel like it might derail A, B, and C if we're not careful. So would encourage directors to try and keep that in mind. But I'll support it at this stop, Mr. Maddox. I know where your heart's at on that, and I know we've gnawed on that bone a lot too in terms of affordable housing. But just want to reiterate, thank you to the staff and Keith and OEV for coming up with a balanced budget. I think that's responsible given the context of the restrictions we face with these projects and the cost of them ballooning. You know, again, I would love it if the airport and the city, my city colleagues would consider some of those sort of small things to try and incentivize people to use our airport more. So with that, Madam Chair, thank you, Director Pollard.
Thank you.
Thank you. You know, at church, you get 3 closings.
That close to-
You had 3 closings. Keep that in mind.
Final.
Commissioner Minor, and then Commissioner Matlow, and then Commissioner O'Keefe, and then the mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. First of all, let me go ahead and I've got a couple things I want to ask questions about. I want to comment on the budget, then the MRG proposal, and then the affordable housing proposal that we've got. Regarding the budget, great job to our staff on this. It's a continuation of the budget we had from the prior years, of course, but it shows that we're making a lot of progress. And I think 25 of the 27 projects in Blueprint are now underway, which is a really good sign of where we're at and how far we've come. One thing I talked about during our briefing, and I want to make sure we're all here talking about it as well, is, you know, in the last 2 or 3 months, we've seen the projections for a recession to possibly increase. The likelihood of recession has grown in just the last 2 or 3 months. If you look at our agenda items, you see that the sales tax revenue projections for fiscal year 26 are 3.25%. And then for every year afterwards, for the life of Blueprint, it's 3%. I spoke with Artie and Autumn and Keith about this, and basically asked them how much of that potential recession is baked into that forecast of our revenue projections, and that has been to a degree. So if we do have a recession, if it looks like something like that is coming, these numbers at least partially reflect what may come, and that was an important point for me, because obviously if our sales tax projections are lower, that changes everything in our budget we have to accommodate. That was one thing, but I wanted to thank Artie and your team for the budget work and for all the work on the projects. It shows that we're really making some huge gains in the community. Again, the opening in the park today, the groundbreaking was just a great symbol of that. Moving on to the MRG proposal. I didn't know anything about MRGs until, you know, about 3 days ago. I started paying attention to this and doing some research. I know you had an article in today's paper in the Tallahassee Democrat about some deals that are close to coming to fruition about bringing airlines here. Without you providing information that you shouldn't provide, can you give us any more detail on what those kind of deals are? And it sounds like some of them may hinge on the type of incentive we might provide with an MRG.
So we're out there talking, Commissioner, to numerous airlines all the time, right? We recently went to and attended a conference and spoke to 13 plus different airlines. We're heading to another conference next month, talking to 8 airlines currently and building. So just know that we're out there really projecting our airport, our community, as we look to the future and look to the international facility coming online, the future foreign trade zone. So without getting into a whole lot of detail, let me just suggest that I've been at the airport 30 plus years now. I've learned a thing or two. I've taken some hard knocks along the way, right? But there's a few things that we need to think about in this community, right? We're not near the beaches, as close as we might like to be, right? So you see some greater growth at some of those, I call them the beachy airports. But I always like to focus on the special airport that we are, the special community that we are. And so from that standpoint, if we have to pivot a little bit and do some things a little bit different, new terms enter our vocabulary, such as less than daily service. What does that mean? Less than daily service means you don't have to service every day at 10 o'clock with a departure. It means to be profitable as a carrier, we can make the business case that you can be profitable flying maybe 2 or 3 times a week. And then we also look at things like the aircraft. The aircraft size matters. And so as we look at those total number of seats and the demands of our travelers and our both business and leisure travelers out there, they also want frequency, right? They don't want 1 flight, they want 2 flights, right? They want to be able to get there and back, you know. So we're looking at all the different opportunities that are out there, trying to find a fit with what we're seeing as the aircraft deliveries. That is a part of the equation, the ability of these aircraft manufacturers to deliver aircraft to these airlines, and pilot, crews, technical support, the mechanics that support the airlines and all. So there's a whole picture out there that we have to consider as we continue to move ahead. But a little roundabout way to answer your question, but I hope it gave you a little more insight.
No, it does, and it's a good segue to my next point, which is that I spoke with someone from the Airport Advisory Committee just to kind of do some research on this, and that person shared with me something that for me made this a no-brainer. And that person said that we're not the only airport trying to get airlines, and that other airports, other communities are doing similar types of incentives to encourage airlines to go to their airports. In fact, that the practice now is so pervasive with MRGs that this advisory board member told me that you almost can't get a seat at the table talking with other airlines if you don't have something like an MRG in your toolkit. For me, that made this a no-brainer. This made it a very clear item for us to support. But my question to you, and you can be totally straight with me on this, is do you agree with that advisory committee member's perception of this, that MRGs and other incentives are so pervasive now within the industry that it's almost expected if you're going to be having a serious negotiation with airlines? Would you characterize that as accurate?
100%. If you want more frequency, if you want more destinations, if you want more service, you must have, for our type of community, you must have MRGs in the toolbox.
For me, that does it right there. Yeah, this is something that we need to do. I was taking a look at the materials that were provided. ASM did a good report talking about some of the other airports around the country that have done this. And I know I've seen, like many of you have had, some of the buzz on social media and blogs about this proposal. I wanted to point out that this is not a conservative versus progressive policy idea. This is something that airports across the country, some in very conservative parts of the country, are implementing with success. So I know things have been characterized that this is some type of progressive giveaway, but it's frankly something that both very conservative parts of this nation as well as progressive parts have been able to implement with success in attracting airlines to their airports, getting more routes, getting more people in seats to their benefit, to the community's benefit. So I just want to make that very clear. So I support this. I had one last question about the MRGs. In early 2000, we had, I know you were here, we had the AirTran MRG that lasted for basically the duration of the MRG period. And after that was done, AirTran left us. Now, that was a situation where it was shortly after 9/11, and I think the industry took a huge decline for, I think, 2 or 3 years after that, just to kind of get itself back up to where it had been before. What can we do to mitigate the risk of that type of thing happening again? For example, if we have a recession, if we have a downturn in the airline industry, how can we avoid what happened in the early 2000s with AirTran? And I support this initiative, but you were here at that time, remember, right? What can we do to make sure that we mitigate the risk? Because we're sharing the risk with the airlines. And we all have, the community as well as the airlines have a vested interest in making sure that it works. But what can we do to make sure that we mitigate the risk as much as possible?
Thank you. So, little correction, that was not a minimum revenue guarantee.
Oh, it wasn't?
Right?
Okay.
So this is different than that, and we've certainly looked at that and learned our lessons from that as we look to negotiate a stronger minimum revenue guarantee agreement that would be, in this case, managed by the city as we look ahead. So just realize this is not the same as that.
Got it. Well, that answers my question. That's a great answer to the question. That sounds good. Well, listen, thank you for proposing this. Thanks to the city for proposing this. I think it's a good effort. I think it's the kind of thing that we need. Number one, to get a seat at the table in competition with other mid-sized airports throughout the country and make something work. And then once we do get airlines, once you get routes here, the number one barrier, and I know we've all heard this, the number one barrier toward getting businesses to come to Tallahassee is the lack of adequate air service in their eyes, And that's not from a lack of Mr. Powell and his team working on this. They're working very hard, and I've got a lot of respect for you, as do the other people I've spoken with about this issue. But we need to have this in our toolkit to give Mr. Powell and the city and the airport the tools that they need to bring this economic benefit to us. Thank you very much. I support this. Pollard, oh, sorry about that. You need a cup of coffee. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm going to support, in the motion, I support recommendation C. As for recommendation D, I also support this. I think I congratulate Commissioner Maddox for bringing this up. We've all spoken with CAJM about affordable housing. We've all talked about affordable housing for years, not only in Blueprint, but also in our city and county commissions. This is something that we're all working very hard to make progress on, and we are. But the need out there is even stronger. I know you all have read the stat, 11,500 new affordable housing units needed by 2045. We're making a lot of progress, and we're working on this, and both our city and county governments are doing a great job on it, but the need is so great. So I want to thank Commissioner Maddox for bringing up this motion. I think it's the kind of thing where we can combine this 250,000 with other efforts that we have going on to help with that gap financing. And just to make sure that everyone's clear, the infrastructure dollars for Blueprint that we've talked about before, the infrastructure dollars were limited to only land purchases. What this money is coming from is the Future Opportunity Leveraging Fund, which does not have that restriction. So in other words, if it comes from the FOLF, we can use that $250 a year toward the gap financing, which our staff and which housing industry experts have identified as the main barrier toward getting affordable housing in this community. So I think it's a good proposal. I support that as well. I'm going to support the motion as it stands. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Matlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, thanks for being here, Director Pollard. My first question, it was mentioned earlier, and if we have a county commissioner that's willing to give free foot massages at the airport, could we make that a chair available for him?
I'm known for that.
No, I thought those were good suggestions. I appreciate the comments. And seriously, my first question, do we already know the destinations we're looking to entice airlines to go to?
So we regularly scrub the most seats that are going out to particular destinations. So we understand the data. Our friends are here with ASM. They help us study that data regularly as we go out and prepare presentations for these particular airlines and work to make that business case. So yes, we understand the destinations, right? South Florida, if we lump Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach together, if we call South Florida our #1 destination, New York is also a destination that travelers demand and want regular service to. We've got the DC, we've got the Dallas, Fort Worth, and all this. So yes, we scrub that regularly, Commissioner. Mm-hmm. It changes. So as the economy changes, the airlines are adjusting. Sometimes that changes. So we have to go back to it, and we do that regularly.
Okay. And from looking at the data, do you think we're likely to deplete the $670,000 a year, or do you think that there's a market for there and we're just enticing them to come?
So the $670 a year, as it accumulates over a few years, is going to get us in a better and better and better position. So year one, obviously, there's only so much we can do with 670. Year two, we add that, and now we're able to do a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. So that combined with the structure of the revenue guarantee agreement, the structure of that agreement would contain provisions for us to roll those dollars. If they meet that threshold, then those dollars just roll and they continue to build. and all. And so that's what we're doing every single day, whether it's with an issue like this or any other use of local dollars. We're trying to stretch those dollars and leverage those dollars to go just as far as we can get them. We're doing that every single day and do a very good job at it.
The agenda item mentioned that most of the agreements were 24 months or shorter typically. Is that what we're looking at, and how do you measure success after the first 2 years?
Yeah, so in terms of the 24 months, yes. So we would be operating off of that FAA policy guidance. There is some other provisions in there if we talk about what's called seasonal service. That's basically defined as service less than 7 months a year. So if we were talking about seasonal service, it could go for 3 years per the policy. But again, those are conversations with the airlines based on their aircraft availability, their flight crew, their tech ops, and all these different factors. In our case, if I make it up, session is a great time to be having a lot of flights from South Florida, right? Things of that nature that we can have some better conversations with.
And Director Bowers, a question for you. On the 10-year commitment, or what we're voting on today, if there's not success in 2, 4, 6 years, do we have the ability to cancel that, or are we committed to the entire 10 years of funding?
The proposal as is submitted is committed to the entire funding for the next 15 years.
15, okay.
Right.
That's my only concern, I think, about the item, is the long-term commitment without having check-ins if we're 6 years in and it's not successful, not having the ability to pull back. So I just wonder if there's any way to structure that differently. I'm looking at the attorney.
We'll let Artie respond.
Commissioner, we bring the budget to you every year, and so if you decided as a board to stop, you would have that ability as the board.
Okay. So we're not contractually obligated to continue to fund it. It's
It'll be funded unless you tell us otherwise.
we can pull back. Okay, that answers that question. And lastly, I support the motion on the table. I was actually conflicted about having recommendation C as part of the workshop. I don't think it was necessarily needed to be expedited to this meeting, considering we canceled our last meeting for lack of business. But in the spirit of the compromise that Commissioner Maddox has offered up, I'll support the motion on the table.
Commissioner O'Keefe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to echo some Commissioner Matlow's sentiments. And I really want to thank Commissioner Maddox for coming up with this idea, because it's one of these things where we, on behalf of a lot of the community asking us to find a way to do more affordable housing, it's important that we're all, as commissioners, always having it in our mind to say, oh, wait, here's an example we can follow, here's where we can put something in. And that's what's going to, that is what's going to convince me to support this motion over objections I have to other items, because we would get that amount for housing. And I also, so talking about the project budgets, I want to start by thanking staff.
Commissioner O'Keefe, do you need Mr. Pollard to continue to stand here? You have questions again?
I'll ask his. I'll do the airport first and let him.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Mr. Pollard. Have we done other incentive programs before based on reports or analysis by ASM?
Yes, Commissioner, we have. We've done several year after year, so it's an ongoing part of our city budget process that we establish funds from our enterprise fund to go towards things like waived landing fees, waived facilities fee credits, things of that nature, some limited marketing assistance maybe. So yes, we do that on a regular basis.
Have those programs hand out as expected, and have we found the estimated return on investment that was provided in the analysis handout to be what it was said it would?
Yes, I think if you look at Florida Department of Transportation's economic impact study, if I think back in 2014, our annual economic impact at the airport was $399 million. If I look at 2019, it was $599 million, and it's currently close to $1 billion. So I would say yes, the efforts that we're taking, rewriting our minimum standards and rules and regulations we worked with our advisory committee on, becoming more business friendly, becoming more open to pilot studies and programs and things of that nature. We've come a long way, and we've got just a lot more to do with respect to this international and the future foreign trade zones.
Sure. But do we evaluate the individual programs? You're describing a comprehensive impact.
So if I look at current return on investment of this request, it's basically $110 if I'm looking at my math right, return on investment for every dollar, right? And $20.6 return on investment for some of our existing programs and all. So we're getting a very healthy return on investment on the programs and the activities that we're doing out there every single day.
And you're getting at my concern is I'm skeptical that we will get what's being pitched here. The examples in the materials provide an analysis that says basically it would be 100 times return on investment. 10 million over the rest of the term of Blueprint will bring in $1 billion. And so there was other examples from programs done in other cities and airports, and the numbers that were given had that return. An example, the only examples that gave both the input and the return numbers were the New Orleans example, where they input $1 million and they got a return on investment of 20 million, so 20 times return. And then the only other one that gave both inputs and outputs was Austin, which is closer, 1.3 million in, and they got a $75 million return. So 50 times investment. And so why do we expect our program will do 100 times the investment versus the other examples that were deemed as successful being a 20 times and a 50 times?
So, Commissioner, and if you want to get in more detail, I'll let our consultants talk to you in more detail. What we used as a basis is some of the data that FDOT uses, as well as Airports Council International. So they did a study in March of 2025, which is titled The Economic Impact of U.S. Commercial Service Airports. And so the data comes in from there, and the assembly of that data and the numbers that it spits out with respect to direct and indirect, that's the number we get to.
Okay. And that's all my questions in the airport.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowler. My thing on the airport is I wish we could evaluate it as an actual separate item like we do any other proposal. That's not what we're being asked to do. Ideally, we do want to support the airport, but it just, I don't know why it gets slipped in ahead of everything else without something we've discussed before. And I just find that a little frustrating when we've had other programs in the non-competitive, like the 3D building company, that they were on track, but because of a stalemate on who gets to see a contract commitment first, they couldn't get it, and they moved on, and now they moved to another county where they do their business, not here, and we're missing that. And so I'd like to see us getting the same internal treatment as we give our external, but that's procedural. So moving on to the budget, I want to thank staff for their work. These are big numbers, and I know a lot goes into them. I know there's a lot of work that supports making these estimates, and so thank you for that. And to Commissioner Welch's comment, I actually didn't produce these tables because I intend to go project by project to object increases, to decide increases. I created these tables because after last year's budget structure was changed to no longer disclose each Blueprint project and start calling Blueprint projects sub-projects, which doesn't make sense to me to call the entire airport project a sub-project. But anyways, my concern is we're talking about big numbers, and the board is no longer being made aware of those. And I think that it's incumbent upon us as elected officials to be aware each time we vote, to say, here is a project that what is now 150 million, and that is the real current projected estimate. That was 100, and there's one project that was 40 million, and now its updated project estimate is 20 million. We ought to know that. That shouldn't be behind the scenes. That shouldn't be not produced. And so that's why I prepare these tables. That's why I ask for these records, so that we can do that, because I'm not comfortable when a constituent asks me, how much is this project that we voted for in Blueprint, this particular one, what's that going to cost us out the door, we think, I think that's a reasonable thing to expect from people, and I think people can understand reasonably estimates change. That's why they're estimates, and I'm not buying the argument that the new policy to keep the project cost estimates secret is one within what government practices should be, and two, is actually saving us construction bid money, or is a practice that other governments do. I don't know if the city doesn't provide updates of big projects every year with estimated costs. I believe the county has a policy regularly, if a project the cost is updated, that we are provided that. And so that's my issue, and that's why I create these reports, and that's why I ask for them, because not because I dispute their accuracy, not because I'm concerned that they're different each year, which is what happens, and that's why they're updated, but in giving a real open-minded analysis of the argument that this should be kept secret starting last year, is that really saving us money, where we have projects that we have had construction bids, contracts done in the past year under this new policy where they're secret, and yet those projects still cost more. And so it just doesn't make sense to me, the idea that secrecy is saving us money. And so that's my concern, and that's why I'm uncomfortable voting on budgets like that. And in fact, last year, I misunderstood, I guess. I thought that when we approved the allocations last year, that even the agenda just had 3 big buckets without sub-projects listed. I asked for and got the sub-projects directly to me, and I thought that was what we were voting on. But it turns out, it was explained to me, that because we approved just what's in the master project, which is everything combined, that staff is able to move millions between those allocations without it coming before the board or being approved. And I don't doubt that those transfers are necessary, but I don't think we fulfill our responsibility to the public to not be made aware and not approve big changes like that. And we don't have to do what we've done a couple years ago, where we had big questions about going through every project every year, but it's basic transparency. And so that's why I share the information, and that's why I bring it up. And I will support this motion solely on the basis of getting some affordable housing money, because that's really what I care about. And if we've got to give airport money, that probably is a good idea, but I'd like to see some more due diligence on, or approve a budget that allows staff to move tens or more, maybe 100 million if they need to, or decide without board approval between projects. I'm willing to support that begrudgingly to get some housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor?
Madam Chair, I'll be quick. First of all, Mr. White, I want to congratulate you and team once again, our award-winning team, for bringing back this budget item, and continue the great work. Thank you. And Mr. Pollard, I want to thank you and the incredible team at the airport for all that y'all do. Sometimes we tend to forget that the Tallahassee Municipal Airport was ranked the #1 municipal airport in the state of Florida. The state of Florida just a couple of years ago. Mr. Pollard was named the #1 municipal airport executive director in the United States of America just a couple of years ago. 30 years of experience in your Marine background. You serve us very well. We are hitting all-time record numbers at the airport, about to have $1 billion economic impact, about to hit 1 million passengers. But nonetheless, I certainly do appreciate, and I think all my colleagues at the city appreciate full consideration from the county. We do need to take this step forward. And Commissioner Minor, I completely understand. I was here during the AirTran. That was a straight up $1 million a year for 10 years. No questions asked. This is revenue guaranteed minimum. So I do see it as different. This is, as the mayor and as the chair of the Airport Advisory Committee, I am up to my eyeballs in our operations. And while we have the best team, and we have an incredible operation, this is the necessary step. So I will be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Commissioner Richardson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I too want to, first of all, start out by commendating, Artie, you and your staff on the work that you've done to bring this balanced budget to us. As you all know, I mentioned to somebody.
It was just an error. Someone got
Okay.
Go ahead.
Apologize.
I mentioned to someone recently that, being here now and being on the IA board and having been a part of Blueprint since its origination in 1998 is when we started. It was passed in 2000, and to see where we are today and what we've been able to accomplish for this community, this means a lot for me personally, and certainly for the community that we serve. I also wanted to mention, Commissioner, that the reason that this came to us now is because it was time sensitive. That's my understanding, David, Artie, that it was time sensitive and we needed to get it done now. And that's why I was okay with putting it on the agenda and bringing a recommendation. It is a no-brainer to me. I mean, when you look at the progress that we've made at the Tallahassee Municipal Airport, and understanding that we have been hearing from the community that we've got to do better in terms of service and the frequency of service and the destinations that we're able to get people to, so they don't have to drive to Jacksonville or Valdosta or Panama City or Pensacola to get to where they need to get in a timely fashion. This is just that. This is a step we need to take in order to get us there. I firmly believe that, and I wholeheartedly support the recommendation to move forward with this funding, especially given the fact that it's not something that we have to guarantee for 10 years. As Artie mentioned, each year that we put together a budget, we can determine if we're going to continue with that funding and at that particular level. So keep that in mind as well. I have a problem with the affordable housing piece. And again, as most of you all probably know, I've been a champion of public housing since the day I hit the Tallahassee City Commission. It was because of my efforts over a 4-year period of time that we were able to get South City in the CRA, to get some initial funding to make that project happen, because some of that was funded through CRA funds once they were made available. I've served for several years now on the board of the Tallahassee Lenders Consortium, another housing partner that the city and county partner with to provide affordable housing in the community. And also AHAC, our Affordable Housing Advisory Council. And I say that in the support of Habitat for Humanity. And I say that to highlight what I have done, the personal commitment that I have made to making sure we have affordable housing for individuals who can afford housing in our community. Not everybody can. And the reason I say that is because when we look at this project and the millions that it will bring, the economic impact that it will have for this community, the number of jobs that will be created, they may be at the airport, but those people don't spend their money at the airport. Those that work there, they spend their money at the malls and the grocery stores at events. So it behooves us still to create those jobs if they're at the airport, because that economic impact is felt throughout this community. The issue that I have with the affordable housing piece, Commissioner Maddox, and I wish it had been brought to us as a separate item, is the fact that if we spend that money on affordable housing and the people can't afford the housing, let me back up for another second, because one issue that I did want to bring to the table is the fact that, as I mentioned, I served on the Blueprint Committee, the Sales Tax Committee. We spent innumerable amounts of time on those issues and identifying projects, and affordable housing was not one of those projects. And so I think that if we are going to add that to an issue that this community voted on to address economic development and infrastructure projects, we should give this community an opportunity to express their support or non-support for that. I just don't think that we should sit here as 12 individuals and determine that what the community voted on, we should add something without their input. So that's why this is difficult for me. And you know, if we're hell-bent on keeping it the way it is, I'm going to support it only because the airport item is in there. I just strongly feel like all that we went through to create a Blueprint and the dollars for Blueprint and what the community said they wanted to see those dollars spent for, and then for us just to come and like I said, I can say that because I've shown my commitment to producing affordable housing in this community. I've demonstrated that personally, and in the votes that I've taken in that regard. So this one is a tough one for me, y'all. If we decide that we're going to go forward, I mean, I would have to vote for it because of that item, but I don't like it when we do things like that. You know, this has been sprung on us the day at the meeting, not the day of the meeting, but at the meeting. And we haven't had a chance to have any discussion or community input on I don't like it when that kind of thing happens. And so, like I said, I'll see where we go from here, but this is going to be a tough one, y'all.
Madam Chair,
On point, Mayor.
I believe the motion is to bring the housing item back to
Oh, okay,
not a final decision.
okay.
So
My fault.
it would
My
come.
fault. That was my understanding, is that it would, okay, all right.
On point.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for making that clarification.
Yeah.
So the motion here is to go ahead and to include amendment in the 2025 budget for the $250,000, but there's no parameters around the program. So you're getting OEV to come back with the parameters around the program that we would get to see and then by approve. So it's not like, you know, we're approving it right now. There's gonna be a program and we don't know what it looks like. Mm-hmm. So it's gonna come back again for us to look at the parameters, but I did want to go ahead and include, since we have the pot of money there, the amendment in the 2025 budget, the amendment for that $250,000 that we have there to be able to spend. Is that?
Okay, yeah, I feel much better about that.
Let me
And
come to the director to provide some clarification. And let me just say this, since we have a little pause in action. It is now 2, almost 15. We have a regular meeting that starts at 3 p.m. We have 5 people in the queue still to speak. So if we can be expedient with our comments and our time, I'd appreciate it.
Director, just want to make sure I understood so we can bring the right thing back. You would be looking at $250,000 allocation from the Future Opportunity Leveraging Fund that would be available to the city or county for affordable housing. Just
Yes.
make sure it's coming from the right fund and available to both city and county.
Right, so I think what I'm looking for here is something of the sort that it would be available to those who are looking for the ability to build affordable housing. So, yeah, pretty much,
Thank you.
yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Proctor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, I don't know why we can't have a standalone
Got you later.
affordable housing thingy anyway. When the church folk came to us seeking a standalone measure, but what we were doing is swapping or placing an appeasement that this is a class and classes donation of money to a group of people who can afford to fly, flyers. We make ourselves feel better to offer to poor folk who can barely afford to live in a house. I think the crisis for people who have nowhere to live is certainly greater than people who can't afford pull out a credit card and buy a ticket. I'm like Richardson. I don't like it either. This kind of feels like the FAMU presidential search that ain't got no lights on, no transparency. You just present it 1, 2, 3, 4 items to vote, select one. That's exactly what this is. I hate it. Wanted to ask a couple questions around this measure. What is the airport doing now that we got 6 lanes in front of the airport, all around it? What is the effort to attract hotels, restaurants, and make that dirt impactful as options for people to come down there? I'm curious about that. I've not heard no kind of plan, and I believe it for people who are coming here as a member of Madam Chair of the Tourist Development Council, which you and I, Commissioner Richardson, serve. I've not heard not one thing about a head sleeping in a bed closer to the airport. Have we recruited? Do we have a plan to make it more than what it exists now? That's the first question.
Mr. Pollard, I guess in line with his question, I know your focus is on the airport. Do you feel that that's a question you can respond to? Is that a question that city leadership needs to respond to, or?
I'm comfortable responding from the airport standpoint.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So I might just add, Director, Commissioner, in our city strategic plan, one of our strategic priorities is to lease 100 additional acres of land. We're also investing $50 million in infrastructure improvements. This is in our current adopted city strategic plan. And so as we look ahead, we are about to release here within probably the next 60 days a request for interest or proposals to develop hotels on the airport. And so we're going to see what the market will bring from that standpoint and see what kind of responses we get back. In addition, we're out there more than ever looking at other opportunities. So if you look at the way the road project and the turn lanes, you can now see it in the turn lanes because I was a part of the planning back in about 2007 or 8, right? When I'm asking them to insert turn lanes into the north part of the property, the way that we're looking to develop the site readiness of those, all these different things that are coming together as we look towards the future. But yes, hotels, gas stations, things of that nature, sit-down family-style restaurants, things that will activate that part of the airport and all work together. Once you get a hotel, you might get a gas station. You get a gas station, you might get a coffee shop. You get a coffee shop, right? There's all these different higher and better uses of the property out there, and that's what we're studying very hard, working with our consultants.
You all working with our Office of OEV, or who you just have consultants working to fulfill its potential of expanded roadway?
I'm sorry.
Working with y'all.
we have a number of consultants that we work with on a regular basis in addition to our regular stakeholders. Yes, we work with OEV.
I'd like to
Yes, we
see
work with Blueprint. Yes.
I love, this body deserves to see a projected plan of the parcels of dirt and some pictures on it, what it might look like, who y'all pitching. I think Commissioner Caban has done a great job, and
Commissioner Proctor, if, I hear what you're saying. We're trying to, I got some folks who want to speak on point to what you're speaking to, and I know that the airport director understands what you're asking for.
Good, and I hope that comes quickly. Madam Chair, my final point then, among multiple that I won't comment on. I'm very disturbed by these numbers in the increase. And one of the things when you get a president don't know what they're doing, you come out 100 and 380% over estimated initial cost. And we see, I have questions about those, but yielding to the time restraints. I do have one concern. Don't we have $40 million in the kitty with regard to the airport gateway, which was $80 million, $82 million. We ain't going to build $122 million. So it ought to be $40 million somewhere. Where is that money? Can anybody tell us about that $40 million? How can that $40 million even substitute for what's being negotiated here? We got money. The gateway money is available. Or do we have to create another search committee and do it in secret or what? I'm confused. Can you help me, Ms. White?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I said we got $40 million. You heard that. Where's that money, the gateway difference of 122 to 82? Where's that $40 million? And how is it laid in this thing that's projected as numbers? Why can't that $40 million be structured into what we're talking about right now? Anybody understand that? Was that question too hard?
Well, yeah. I'd be happy to talk a little bit about the airport gateway. But first, I just want to say we're a public agency, and there are no secrets. So anything anybody ever needs,
This
of course,
was today.
we're available and happy to respond. But absolutely, we're a public agency and don't operate in
Where's the $40 million, what I'm asking?
Yeah, the Airport Gateway project has had prior year allocations, and we actually anticipate future allocations going to the Airport Gateway. The $83 million bond that we're seeking the I Board's direction on for fiscal year 26, a large chunk of that will likely go towards the Airport Gateway. Spring Hill Road, the first phase of that construction is actually starting this summer, so we're going to be using our prior year allocations to do a segment kind of on the southern end of Spring Hill Road. So that's a pretty exciting breakthrough. We also have the partnership with Department of Transportation to begin the construction of the Munson Bridge. That's a leveraging opportunity for us as well. So DOT's bringing some of that $40 million to the table through their investment in our south side.
Right. So the segment, thank you, Ms. Caldwell, but the segment of widening from Spring Hill Road down to Crawfordville Road, I don't know what that segment is called, but is there a plan for the continued expansion between Crawfordville and Spring Hill Road?
Let me just kind of jump in here. We're going to have a meeting at 3 o'clock.
I'm with you.
That we can talk as long as you want to talk about all of that. I would hope that we could get everybody in the queue to say what they need to say regarding this budget process today. There'll be other opportunities to see this budget as well, but I think that what you're asking for can be provided at the regular meeting.
Right.
If you just work with me on, we'll make sure
I'm
you
with
get
you,
there.
Madam Chair. I'm always with you, except for when I'm not, but I'm with you today. Understand, I need to know what is the projected plan from Spring Hill Road widening to Crawfordville Road. I like the information that as soon as possible.
And she'll come back with that information.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, let me tell you how how we're gonna finish this. I have Commissioner Porter in the queue, who's online, Commissioner Caban, and Commissioner Cummings. Okay? So if we all just work with me, we can get that done. Commissioner Porter, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple questions about the airport. I know that the model involves or can involve, and in other communities involves other community partners. And I was wondering if you could speak about what community partners we've reached out to and what plans we might have to bring other community partners on board.
Thank you for the question, Commissioner. Yeah, so we continually are reaching out within the community and the broader region to talk to various stakeholders and all. We certainly like to speak with our local universities, chambers, and things of that nature as we continue to look forward to the future. This is a regional asset. Our airport is a regional asset, and so we need to certainly reach out and understand their needs. I call it aviation in the community. We have to get out there and understand the needs. We need to work with our business leaders and community partners on a continuous basis. We have to listen and hear and understand what their needs are. And so that's a regular part of what we're doing. We need to do more of it as well.
So are there any other
Commissioner Porter.
partners?
Commissioner Porter, excuse me for interrupting, but the mayor would like to on point with this response.
Yeah, to double on Commissioner Porter, rest assured that all Florida State FAMU, Tallahassee State College have formal appointments to the Citizens Advisory Board at the airport, along with all three chambers are represented on the board. Two of the chambers are represented by their executive directors as well. So there is, it's not just a working relationship, there is formal representation on the airport.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Porter.
Thank you. And as a follow-up, are there any partners who may provide additional funding? For example, Raleigh-Durham, the Research Triangle Regional Partnership is a funder. Or is that something that we are thinking about in the future?
The answer to that, Commissioner, is yes. We're looking to pull in as many partners as we can to make the revenue guarantee as robust as it can be and draw in and have those discussions with these other carriers that we seek. And also, the more partners we can have with us as we continue our negotiations with various carriers and assemble the business case for them, for our community, yes, we're certainly interested in those partnerships as we move forward.
Thank you. So for these contracts, as we enter into them, I assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, these will be individually negotiated with the carriers for a specific amount of time. I know the attachment says these are typically 12 to 24 months, but we will negotiate that on a case-by-case basis. Is that what you have in mind, or what is being proposed?
Yes, Commissioner. We would, again, the funding would need to go to the city, so we would work with the city, serve as a technical resource for the city to manage the revenue guarantee. And as we look ahead, yes, each individual airline will have their own requirements as we are negotiating with them and various thresholds that we would need to agree to. So, yes, it is a negotiation.
Thank you. And could you speak briefly to how we reached the amount we settled on? I mean, I know that, we have limited resources, but do we think that this is enough to actually achieve the outcome we're looking for?
So, Commissioner, that was part of the reason we asked for the remainder of the 15-year period. So the 670 per year, as that grows, that puts us in a much better negotiating posture. It also allows us to negotiate multiple routes as well as multiple carriers and all as it continues to grow. So again, still also while looking for other partners that we can work with to make it even more robust if possible.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I just have a couple of comments and maybe a question for Commissioner Maddox, who I want to thank for making the motion and including the portion about affordable housing. I was wondering, I just wanted to give this input. I won't ask that the amendment be changed or that the motion be amended, but I do want to emphasize, and correct me if I missed this, just the need for extremely low income housing in particular, and that being something that KJM and others have brought to light as being specifically, there being a gap that really, really needs to be filled. And so as this comes back to us to be fleshed out for what programs we are looking to, how this shapes up, I really would encourage us to prioritize extremely low income housing as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Porter. Next, we have Commissioner Caban, followed by Commissioner Cummings.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to start by saying thanks staff for the putting together this budget. And I really do wish we could bifurcate some of these items because I would love to support your motion, Commissioner Maddox, and I would love to support the airport program. I also want to, in regards to the airport program, commend the mayor because I know this has been a big priority I saw in your budget workshops, and I know this is a big issue for not only Tallahassee, but the surrounding areas. My frustration in particular to how this is set up is this is 1% of the $1 billion budget that we're discussing and voting on together. And so I would love to vote on recommendation C and support your motion, Commissioner Maddox. However, I do want to be consistent and vote no on the Airport Gateway project. And I do want to be consistent on budget recommendation A because I've been steadfast on how I do not like how we are doing this budget process to where we're no longer getting line item budgets for each individual project based on what, if the data that Commissioner O'Keefe provided is accurate, which is the spirit of this conversation, I will interpret that it's accurate. I mean, some of these projects are up way past the rate of inflation. And in previous budget cycles, we've heard that these projects are up due to inflation. Well, we're not seeing, private sector construction jobs go up, 30%, 20% in 1 year. And so, I don't like how, when we discussed this in our briefing, that we no longer get the project estimates to come back to us every single year. Based on the conversation that was discussed in my briefing, and correct me if I'm wrong, staff has the authority to continue to spend on the projects without coming to the board so long as the scope does not change. And so that means the project for the Airport Gateway that we voted on last year at $125 million, it could be up to $175 million. And as long as the scope has not changed, staff has the authority to continue to spend for that amount. Is that accurate based on, I'm sorry, Madam Chair?
I can't answer that question.
Yes, yes. May I address it to staff?
Yes, you may.
Based on Autumn and our briefing yesterday, is that correct? Our Director Calder, I apologize.
It's not on. Still not.
Okay, gotcha. So, all right, so the intergovernmental agency, through your interlocal agreement, you've approved a list of projects, right? So that's in the interlocal agreement, which is the agreement that created the agency between the city and the county. And there's a list of projects in there. And that is a tool that helps us to expedite these projects. So we know exactly what we're building. That list was announced to the voters at the referendum time. And there are safeguards in place that help to protect that list. As you guys know, we have the substantial amendment process that makes it a pretty high threshold to change that list. And part of what comes with that is our procurement policy, which to help move these projects into the community more quickly, we have a procurement policy that allows us, with the IA board's direction, to advertise, bid, and award these projects. So if the IA board has given us that ability to advertise, bid, and award, then we do that. You've determined the scope of the projects, and that's what we design, and that's what we'll construct, barring any changes from the IA board for the scope. So if we have the board's approval to advertise, bid, and award, then we do that without having to come back to this body.
So for point of clarification, if the project increases, if a project goes up $50 million, that will not come back to the board for approval because the project's already been pre-approved.
As long as the funding is available in the budget, then we would keep going. Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, see, directors, that's what I have a problem with, is with the way this budget's set up is there really is not enough board oversight in regards to the cost control. I understand that we want to protect the projects, and I understand that we want the projects to continue, and I understand that the scope, we're not in control of the design, staff is in control of the design, and so we're in control of the scope. However, there's no cost protection measures, and this is a lot of money. We're seeing in one budget cycle this go up, 25% roughly. It went up previous year, and so at what point are we going to say, hey, something's not right? These construction costs are far surpassing what's going on in the private sector, at least what I'm seeing. And so with that being said, I do not plan on supporting the motion on the table because, even though I agree with 1% of what we're trying to do here, there's 99% of this budget that's not being discussed, as well as some significant systems and procedures behind it. Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cummings?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to, begin by echoing Commissioner Richardson's initial comment when he said, I looked at this and it's a no-brainer. I support the airport initiative, and I certainly did. I was very excited, and of course, I told staff in my briefing, I was very, very excited because I think we all want to see the airport flourish with more carriers, with more competitive affairs, and I think Mr. Powell and his team, the mayor, the city, you guys are doing a good job to bring that to the citizens here in Leon County. So I want to thank the staff. You guys do a tremendous job every year. You presented the budget. You say that it's balanced through 2040, and it's no small task for you guys to do that. Now, but echoing Commissioner Caban's concern, I would think that if we have budgets that are increasing pursuant to inflation or whatever cost, at some point, we're not going to have a balanced budget. And at some point, we're going to run out of funding. Am I correct? Or how does that work? Because we have a finite amount of money that's projected through 2040. And if through inflation or other means, we go beyond that, at some point, it's going to have to come back to the board for consideration or for a modification of the projects. Am I correct? May I ask Mr. White? Madam Chair?
Yes, Director. That's why we do this process every year. We look at what the projected revenues are and adjust them every single year, as well as the amount allocated and proposed to be allocated to the funds. If something goes wrong, we will definitely be here in front of you asking for some direction. But we're in year 5 of a 20-year program. And so we're moving forward with projects. We're looking at the scope of projects. We're implementing the projects as you told us to do.
So based on your projection, you believe that we look good up through 2040, even with some exponential increases in these projects?
Right, and that's also why we do a 5-year budget capital improvement program, so we kind of look at it 5-year increments. Beyond that, really just be guesstimating, to be honest.
But every year, you guys bring something to us every year. If we have to amend, or if there's I guess, a big increase, it comes to the board.
Right, or if we have a situation like Director Minor mentioned, we move into a recession, that would definitely precipitate some conversations that would need to be had.
Okay, thank you, Mr. White. And I just want to thank Commissioner Maddox for his insight, his innovation, staff innovation with the incentive for the airport, and also with his concern about affordable housing. We've discussed this. We've had many individuals come to our meetings, groups, and we've agreed that affordable housing is an issue. As we sit here now, we're a deficit of over 10,000 affordable rental units, and that's not considering people that are going to be moving into Tallahassee. So we've discussed it. We know it's a need, and I certainly support Commissioner Maddox's motion, which would be budget recommendation. You added a D, I believe. D. So I will certainly be supporting that motion, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone for your comments. I think everyone has had an opportunity to speak. So let me just weigh in real quickly. Thank you for helping us stay within our time. As I started with Commissioner Maddox's motion, I still believe that it should stand alone and not be piggybacked onto what we're trying to do with our airport. Affordable housing, we're all aware of the need, but we're also aware of what we are dealing with our airport. And I would not want the success moving forward with our airport to be hinged upon how we decide to append affordable housing on it. We've dealt with affordable housing in this body many times, and we've looked deeply. And I too am interested in innovative ways to fill our housing. Okay, we don't normally take speakers during workshops, though, correct? So we'll ask the speakers to remain for our regular meeting. Thank you. What was I saying? We know that affordable housing is necessary, but we also are very in tune with what we're hearing about our airport. And I don't think that one needs to be dependent upon the other. And I would like to have heard more about a request for gap funding, because last I heard, we needed funding. I didn't know that we needed gap funding, which means that some funding must have been identified somewhere, and we're trying to collaborate like we've done our other affordable housing projects, but none of that has been, I've not been made aware of any of that to this point. And we've done a lot of things to figure out how to make affordable housing fit in the blueprint. And last I heard, what we looked at doing is putting it on the list for the next set of blueprints, should the citizens agree that we should move forward with a blueprint and another iteration, and that affordable housing should be a part of it. I have concerns about pitting something against something else to make sure, and hearing some of the comments that are made today, that the only reason some people are going to support this airport is for the affordable housing piece. And that shouldn't be. We shouldn't be hinging the success of our airport on whether we agree with doing some gap funding for affordable housing. But thank you all for your comments. Thank you all for helping us stay within our schedule. And at this point, I think
Madam Chair, may I repeat the motion so we're on the same page?
I'm sorry?
May I repeat the motion so we're on the same page?
Okay, do you want to repeat the motion, or do we want to read it from the, okay, please repeat it.
Thank you. Staff recommendations, item 1, option 1, A through C, with adding a D to mirror exactly what C says, which is authorize OEV to also establish a program titled Affordable Housing Gap Finance Incentive Program under its Innovative Grants and Programs Master Project, and fund the program with an annual allocation of $250,000 per year, including a budget amendment for current fiscal year 2025. Madam Chair, that's my motion.
Okay, the motion has.
Information, Madam Chair. Does affordable housing mean rent subsidy, or does it mean the purchase of?
I have no idea what any of that means as of today. We just This was just brought to
The
this
church group
meeting.
was talking about rent subsidy to assist people with rent, and I'm surely unclear with what we're talking about.
Before we get too far down the road on those kind of details, that's why I'm asking for staff to bring back a program to fit. I'm asking for the allocation this year, Commissioner Proctor, but I want staff to bring back a program that fits into what OEV does so we can get the exact return with what we're being asked for. I don't think we should try to discuss what the details are because we're not that far down the road.
But I want to understand, OEV has told us that they do not do rent subsidy, so we're already clear.
With this pot of money, it is what we're asking for can be done with the pot of money that we're seeking.
Is that true? We could need to find that out now. It don't need to sound like one thing and
Commissioner
can't.
Proctor is absolutely true. I'm not guessing on that. I know it is.
Can, Madam Chair, I'm just asking, can it do what we've told it could not do, and that's deal with rent subsidy and.
Rent subsidies is not a part of gap financing, so no, Commissioner Proctor, rent subsidies would not be a part of it.
Okay, I want to make sure that we understand that while we tend to appease those who've come here for affordable housing, but we couldn't meet their request. Thank you.
Okay. Now that we have that crystal clear, let's move forward with the motion that is on the table. The motion was made by Commissioner Maddox. It was seconded by Commissioner Minor. Okay, Madam Attorney, do we need to do a roll? We do a roll call vote. Okay. Roll call vote, please. Madam Clerk.
Mayor Daley,
Aye.
Commissioner Matlow,
Aye.
Commissioner Porter,
Aye.
Commissioner Richardson,
Reluctantly, aye.
Commissioner Williams-Cox,
Same. Aye.
Commissioner Caban, Commissioner Cummings,
Yes.
Commissioner Maddox, Commissioner Minor,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Keefe,
Aye.
Commissioner Proctor,
No.
and Commissioner Welch.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. And let me just, if I can just add this. Affordable housing keeps coming back to this body. And I thought we had exhausted all, we looked under every rock last time, but apparently there's another rock. Let's look under all the rocks this time and make sure that when we come back, we're clear on what this body can and cannot do, or can afford or cannot afford, because we're conflating, and we're repeating, we're circling. And I think that we need to keep moving forward and find the best alternative to deal with our housing crisis. So I'll just say that. And I'm looking down the table. Make sure we turn every rock over this time. All right. Thank you all again so very much for all that you've done to make this such a painless process and productive process. Thank you, staff. Thank you, leadership. Thank you, airport, for all that you're doing to try to make us whole again in the city of Tallahassee as far as air traffic is concerned. We want to thank the members of the public, and just know too that there are 2 public hearings on this budget that will be held before the final approval by this board. The first public hearing will be held during Blueprint Citizens Advisory Committee meeting on August 28th, 2025. The second and final public hearing will be scheduled during our board meeting on September 18th, 2025. This concludes this budget workshop.
Good job.